For 4 hours, Matthew Trussler fought to stay alive, crawling through his own blood, dragging himself to a window, trying to escape the woman who was supposed to love him. But Melissa Turner didn't call 911. She didn't try to save him. She waited until his heart stopped beating at 4:31 a.m. Then she waited some more. This is what happens when obsession meets rage in a Florida home. October 2019, Riverview, Florida, a 4-bedroom house with a swimming pool, the American dream, complete with 4 cats and a puppy named Lantern. Inside lived Melissa Turner, 26, better known to thousands of paying fans as Thorns Rose. She wasn't just any online model. Melissa had built an empire selling fantasy. Cosplay by day, adult content by night, men paid to watch her transform into their favorite characters, to fulfill their fantasies through a screen. She controlled every interaction, every image, every moment of intimacy. In her digital world, she held all the power. She was the goddess, and they were the worshippers sending tribute. Matthew Trussler, 25, had moved from Pennsylvania chasing his own dreams. He found work, found love, and thought he'd found his future. But what kind of future do you build with someone who's used to men begging for her attention? Someone who spends her days being adored by strangers online while you work a regular job. They met in 2017. By 2019, they'd bought the house together. Matthew probably thought he was special, different from the thousands of men in Melissa's chat rooms. He got the real her, not the performance, or so he believed. On social media, Melissa posted their life like any other couple. Smiling selfies, their pets, date nights. But look closer at those photos. She's always in the center. Matthew relegated to the background of her carefully curated image. Even in their relationship, she was the star. Her online presence was lucrative. While Matthew worked his regular job, Melissa was raking in money from men who would never meet her. She talked to cameras, played characters, sold the fantasy of availability. Then she'd log off and return to Matthew. Behind the camera, behind the carefully curated posts, arguments erupted. The kind that neighbors could hear through walls. By October 2019, the facade was cracking. Matthew wanted out. He'd been making plans, talking to family about his options. Melissa Turner had already decided that if she couldn't control him, no one would have him. The last day of Matthew Trussler's life started like any other. October 17th, 2019. He walked the dog with Melissa that morning. They went to Home Depot, probably talking about house projects. They stopped at Publix for lunch, normal couple stuff, nothing that would make anyone look twice. But this wasn't a normal couple. While Matthew went through the motions of domestic life, Melissa had probably already been online that day, chatting with fans, selling content, being worshipped by men who paid for the privilege of her attention, then switching it off to play suburban girlfriend. 2 different worlds, 2 different versions of herself. That evening they played cards and drank. Melissa would later emphasize the drinking part. She'd paint a picture of Matthew as an out-of-control alcoholic, someone dangerous, someone who scared her. The neighbor's Nest security camera recorded audio through the fence. These silent witnesses would capture what really happened when the cards were put away, and Melissa's real performance began. At some point after midnight, the arguing started. Maybe Matthew brought up her work again. The fight escalated beyond words. According to police reports, the audio captured her screaming death threats. Telling him to die. The kind of words that can't be taken back. This wasn't Thorns Rose the fantasy. This was Melissa Turner the reality. Raw, unfiltered, lethal. 1 minute later, at 4:31 a.m., Matthew Trussler's smartwatch recorded the exact moment his heart stopped beating, his pulse flatlined, his body, somewhere in that house, had given up, whether from blood loss, shock, or simply running out of fight. But the audio wasn't done. The camera kept recording, glass shattering, more yelling. And then, at 4:44 a.m., 13 minutes after Matthew died, the recording captured 3 words from Melissa. Words that investigators would later say showed the moment reality hit her. The blood trail told investigators everything they needed to know about Matthew's final moments. It started in the kitchen, pooling on the tile floor where the attack began. Broken glass scattered across the counter. 2 knives, both bloodied, abandoned among the chaos. Somehow, he made it outside, past the back door, across the patio, toward the pool, every step leaving a trail of blood, every movement taking him closer to death and further from help. He collapsed by the pool fence. His body would stay there for hours, growing cold in the humid Florida night. Inside the house, Melissa Turner had a decision to make. The show was over. The audience was gone. Her co-star was dead. Call for help immediately? Try to save the man she claimed to love? Or wait, let nature take its course. Make sure he was really, truly gone. Make sure this performance couldn't be undone. She chose to wait. 4 hours, 240 minutes, 14,400 seconds, each one a choice to let Matthew Trussler die. What did she do during those hours? Did she think about her online persona? About how this would affect her business? Did she practice her next performance? The grieving fiancé she'd need to play for police? While Matthew lay dying outside, Melissa Turner was preparing for her most important show yet. One where the stakes weren't tips and subscriptions, but her freedom. The 911 call came in at 8:39 a.m.
911, what is your emergency?
911. I woke up on my boyfriend here. He was outside this morning. He was cold. He was just drinking. He's gone. I found him outside. The kitchen's a bloody mess. He's not breathing.
Why is the kitchen a bloody mess? Hello?
I don't know. I need paramedics.
All right, stay on the line. I'm going to connect you to fire rescue, okay?
Trussler County Fire Rescue. What's the office of the emergency? Tell me what's wrong.
He is non-responsive.
4 hours and 8 minutes after Matthew's heart stopped beating, Melissa Turner, the woman who controlled every second of her online shows, who knew exactly how to perform for an audience, suddenly couldn't seem to find the right words. Dispatchers noted her voice was shaky, breathless. She said she'd found her boyfriend outside, cold, bleeding, gone. The kitchen was a bloody mess. She needed paramedics. First responders arrived to find the front door already open. Melissa stood there, pale, her clothes stiff with dried blood. This wasn't the polished 2 Thorns Rose her fans knew. No ring lights, just a woman covered in evidence of violence. Her hands were stained deep red. She had 1 cut on her hand. That was it. 1 cut. Paramedics didn't need to check for long. Rigor mortis had already set in. Matthew had been dead for hours. The crime scene told its own story. That blood trail starting in the kitchen wasn't just evidence of violence. It was a map of Matthew's desperation. Investigators photographed everything. And there was Melissa, claiming she'd just woken up and found him like this. The same woman who spent hours creating perfect content now couldn't create a believable story. Detectives noted something odd right away. Melissa said she'd performed CPR, but Matthew's body showed no signs of chest compressions, no attempt to clear his airway. At the police station, Melissa's performance began in earnest. She sat across from detectives, still wearing those blood-stained clothes. The overhead lights made everything harsh and clear. No filters here, no editing, just raw reality.
That's what we did. We were there at the house ourselves. We had drinks. He always liked drinking. He was a drinker.
Would you say he had a drinking problem or no?
He had a drinking problem.
Okay.
His mom will tell you the same thing. He will admit it himself.
What about you?
Me? No.
Besides the alcohol last night, were there any drugs?
No.
We're not the drug police, so I'm just asking.
No, he would never touch any of that. Because that was a deal breaker for me, and he knew that. He knew if he touched anything like that again, that he would lose me.
Okay. What time did you go to bed last night?
I mean, like I said, we were having some drinks. But I remember getting really tired around 10, and I just wanted to go to bed. And 10:30-ish was when I remember, 10:30, 11 maybe, is when I remember going to curl up on the chair. Because I slept on that big chair that's in my little office area downstairs. I don't know. I normally don't sleep in. But whatever time, I remember waking up and I didn't see him around. I saw the kitchen was... I didn't see him outside at first. It was cold. I pulled him to the ground.
I know this must be very difficult for you.
It feels like a dream.
Or did you hear anything?
No.
Last night?
No.
Like in the night?
No.
What do you think happened? Was there any fighting or arguing last night? Do you all have a history of any kind of fighting or arguing?
Nothing. I mean, couples argue sometimes. We never really fought. We would argue.
So there was no arguing last night?
She tried to play the grieving fiancée at first. Heartbroken, confused. She had no idea what happened to Matthew. But detectives had already started piecing together the couple's history. They'd learned about her online career, about the thousands of men who paid for her attention. Then came the game changer, the Nest security camera from the neighbor's house. When detectives revealed they had audio from the time of death, Melissa's careful composure cracked.
I had some video surveillance actually yelling and screaming between a male and a female coming from your house.
For someone used to controlling every aspect of her image, knowing there was unedited evidence must have been terrifying. Her story started shifting. First, she admitted they'd argued. Then she admitted Matthew had been drinking.
I would say he woke me up, and we got in an argument over that because he was still up at 4 a.m. drinking.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, you do have a memory of what happened, right?
Yes.
At 4 o'clock?
Yes.
Then came talk of a knife. Each new version seemed calculated, like she was testing which narrative would work best.
Talking about it more now, thinking back on it, this is from me grabbing a knife out of his hand. I swear he had never hit me, never laid a hand on me, even when drunk. But I do remember pissing him off when I tried to get the knife out of his hand. And my jaw was sore, like I got hit. And I remember being thrown over the counter.
The woman who knew how to read an audience was trying to figure out what these detectives wanted to hear. Now, it wasn't a mystery. Now, it was self-defense. Matthew had come at her, she claimed. He'd grabbed a knife. She'd fought him off. Things got out of hand. But even this performance had problems. Every cam show she'd ever done was scripted, controlled, rehearsed.
He got pissed off, got a little more aggressive with what he was doing.
Okay, and how did you react?
I was scared at first. I'm not trying to be dumb about this. I'm a lawyer.
The medical examiner's report destroyed what was left of Melissa's story. Matthew's wounds weren't random. They were targeted, deliberate. The defensive injuries on his arms showed he'd tried to protect himself. The deep wound in his back proved he was trying to escape when the fatal blow came. This wasn't self-defense. This was murder. Investigators dug deeper into the relationship. They interviewed friends, family, neighbors. They learned about the isolation, how Matthew had slowly been cut off from his support system, how his texts had become shorter, less frequent. They found out about arguments that could be heard through walls, about the toxic dynamics that had been building for months. They also looked into Melissa's online presence. Thorns Rose had cultivated an image of being in control. She told investigators Matthew was an alcoholic, unstable, February 2022. More than 2 years after Matthew Trussler's death, Melissa Turner faced a jury. The woman who'd built her career on fantasy was about to face cold, hard reality. The prosecution laid out their case methodically. This wasn't self-defense. This was second-degree murder committed by someone who couldn't handle rejection. The courtroom was packed. Some recognized her as Two Thorns Rose. Others saw just another defendant trying to escape justice. The prosecution presented the Nest camera audio to the jury. They didn't need to play the actual recording. The transcript was enough. Death threats at 4:30 a.m. A woman's rage captured forever. The medical examiner explained the wounds, defensive injuries on the arms, the fatal stab to the back, evidence of a man trying to escape, not attack. They showed the jury the timeline. 4:31 a.m. Matthew's heart stops. 8:39 a.m. Melissa finally calls 911, 4 hours and 8 minutes, 248 minutes of choice. Each minute a decision to let him die rather than get help. For someone who timed her shows to the second, who knew exactly how long to keep an audience engaged, this delay was damning. Melissa took the stand.
I loved him and I didn't want to do that to him.
Gone was the confident online persona. She cried. She talked about blackouts, head injuries, confusion. She claimed she couldn't remember the death threats captured on audio, couldn't explain the 4-hour delay. Her testimony felt like another performance, but this audience wasn't buying it. The prosecution pressed hard on the inconsistencies. Her story had changed multiple times. First, she knew nothing. Then it was self-defense. Now it was blackouts and confusion. They pointed out how convenient these memory lapses were, how they only seemed to cover the most damaging evidence. Her defense attorneys fought to paint her as a victim. They brought up Matthew's drinking, tried to suggest he was jealous of her online success, painted a picture of a woman pushed too far by a controlling, unstable man. But the evidence told a different story. The person who'd been in control that night was Melissa. The person who'd tried to escape was Matthew. The jury had to decide between two narratives. Was this a woman defending herself against an abusive partner? Or was this someone who couldn't handle losing control, who'd killed rather than let Matthew leave? The evidence pointed clearly to one answer. When the verdict came, Melissa sat perfectly still, no expression, no reaction, like she was posing for one last photo. Guilty, second-degree murder. The woman who'd played so many characters online had failed in her most important role. The judge sentenced her to 20 years and 6 months in prison. No amount of followers, no perfectly crafted content, no online persona could save her from the consequences of what she'd done in the real world. Matthew Trussler's mother stood before the court during sentencing. Her words cut through the silence. She didn't just mourn her son. She mourned what Melissa had done to his memory, the lies, the character assassination, the attempt to paint him as the monster when he was the one who died trying to escape. She spoke about the real Matthew, the son who called every Sunday, the brother who never missed a birthday, the man whose life had been reduced to evidence photos and autopsy reports. 20 years and 6 months. That's what Melissa Turner got for ending Matthew's life, for watching him bleed out, for waiting 4 hours while he died. The woman who'd built an empire selling fantasy online would spend the next 2 decades in a place where personas don't matter. Melissa Turner sits in prison now, serving her sentence. No ring lights, no camera, no adoring fans sending money, just the reality of what she did. Meanwhile, Matthew Trussler is gone forever. No amount of justice brings him back. No verdict undoes those 4 hours when he lay dying by his pool. No sentence erases the image of him trying to crawl through a window, leaving bloody fingerprints on the frame, desperate to escape the person who claimed to love him. Matthew Trussler deserved better. He deserved a chance to live, to love, to find happiness with someone who saw him as a person, not a possession. Someone who didn't need to control every aspect of his life. Someone who could love without destroying. He deserved to see another sunrise. Instead, he died in darkness, betrayed by the person he trusted most. Let that be his legacy. Not just another true crime story, but a warning. Remember, danger can wear a friendly face. Stay aware, look out for others, and reach out if you need help. See you in the next case on Deranged Women. Thanks for watching.